everybody, welcome to Game Informed Family. This is Game Informed Mom, and today we're going to be doing a little bit of a different video. We are going to be talking about my reasons for making the decision to officially leave Final Fantasy XIV. Not all of the reasons are worth talking about. Some of them are bigger than others, some of them are insignificant and just gripes that I have. But in this video, we're going to talk about the biggest reasons. Now, before we get into the actual reasons that I've left Final Fantasy XIV, I do want to talk a little bit about how we got here to begin with. My history with Final Fantasy XIV, my journey has been tumultuous at best. I've left, I've come back, I've left, I've come back. But if you want to skip to the actual reasons that I am leaving 14, chapters are available and timestamps will be in the description, so you can go ahead and skip to the reasons part of the video. Alright, so let's talk about how it all started. I bought Final Fantasy XIV many moons ago. Many moons even before COVID rocked the world. I tried it and enjoyed it, but ultimately decided that the sub cost just wasn't something that I was willing to pay when there were so many great games that didn't have that extra cost. Eventually, I went back, willing to pay the sub cost. And now, I'm in the minority here when I say this, but I truly enjoyed A Realm Reborn story. It was slow and in some places a downright slog, but I liked it anyway. I played for a few months and I got bored with this story and I quit again. This time leaving for single player games. It was several months before I even considered returning. I had downloaded the game again when someone else suggested trying Elder Scrolls Online. Now, I had played ESO at launch and wasn't really that impressed, but I was assured that things had changed for the better. I decided that I would play them both. Now, I'm the type of player that when I find my home, my people in an MMO, I go all in. I knew in the back of my mind that playing both games would never work. Well, I found my home, my family, in Final Fantasy XIV first. I have friends there that I deeply miss. Lanksy, if you're watching, I am going to be coming back for a visit soon for a video series that I would like to do. And there are plenty of other people that I deeply miss there, but Lanksy, he was the one that found me and he brought me into the Nightfall Free Company family, and honestly, they're the reason that I kept going back. So, during the beginning of the pandemic, I sank hours upon hours upon hours upon hours into Final Fantasy XIV. So many hours. But before the 3-month complete shutdown even ended, I was already burnt out. I'd gone back to ESO, where I spent the next 6 months or so. And then over the course of that next year, I played both games sporadically, mixed in with an assortment of other games. But then came the release of Endwalker. I sat in 10+ hour queues. No joke. 10+ hours waiting to play a game. I sat and I waited and waited. I played as many hours as I could during that time, because if I stopped, I'd have to sit in another long queue. So I bounced around between the two MMOs and several other games until August 25th of 2022. I had seen an article about a Steam release of an MMO that many moons ago I had been interested in trying, but I never got around to it. Upon reading the article, I decided that I would go ahead and take a chance on it. To be completely honest, I hadn't heard anything about Guild Wars 2 in so many years that I just assumed it was a barren wasteland, or that it had been completely shut down. The Steam release seemed like the perfect time to jump in. At least there would be an influx of new players, so if the population had dipped over the years, people would be there now. So I downloaded the game, and I jumped in as soon as the game was ready. I decided to make a first impressions video while I tried it out. That video, quality aside, was the single best decision I've made in relation to this YouTube channel. Or rather, my reaction to the feedback on that video, but that's a story for another time. When I tried Guild Wars 2, I had no intention of leaving 14. If Guild Wars 2 had been a good game, my thinking was that I could prevent 14 burnout by bouncing back and forth a bit to break up the monotony of making content for just one game. Well, Guild Wars 2 was not, however, a good game. It is, to be completely honest, my favorite MMO that I have ever played. So, my Final Fantasy XIV subscription ended on September 8th. I saw the email that I would get charged for another 6 months, and I proceeded to log in and cancel my auto-renewal on my subscription. I hadn't logged into 14 since I made the first Guild Wars 2 video on August 25th, so it seemed like the logical choice. Now, I want to make something very clear here. I did not choose Guild Wars 2 over 14 because of the YouTube views I got from Guild Wars 2. Not at all. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, it felt really great to have people actually watch my videos, but that was only secondary. Okay. Let's talk about the reason that you are actually here. Why did I leave Final Fantasy XIV? To be honest, the biggest reasons aren't even 14's fault. They're Blizzard's fault. And to a lesser extent, Asmongold's fault. Now, hear me out here. Blizzard completely screwing the pooch and enraging most of the World of Warcraft community caused this mass exodus from WoW. And then Asmongold's very, very public switch to Final Fantasy XIV brought those WoW players to 14. Now, on the surface, more players equals good. More players equals more money. More money is never a bad thing for the game that you love. Never. The issue was the massive change in the community. I have nothing against people who play WoW. I mean, I was one of them at some point. Or people who watch Asmongold, or people who play other MMOs. Not at all. But the community in World of Warcraft as a whole was very different from the community that was in Final Fantasy XIV. Some of those players from the WoW exodus brought with them this level of toxicity that I hadn't seen previously in the Final Fantasy XIV community. That exodus from WoW caused this shift in the 14 community that I just didn't like. When I started in 14, I found a very welcoming community. For the most part, I found people that were willing to explain mechanics and help out. The mentor system is an absolute mess because too many people are just in it for the mount or the Burger King crown, but there was no shortage of people who were willing to help. At least that used to be the case. When I left this time, it had become more and more common to get no response in random groups when you ask a question. So even with this shift, I still believed that Final Fantasy had an excellent community of friendly people. It was just a little bit harder to find them sometimes. I still thought that they had the nicest community in all of gaming, at least when you're in-game. Outside of the game, any criticism is usually met with a lot of hate, but that's not just a 14 thing, that's kind of an internet thing that 14 just kind of takes to a new level sometimes. So after experiencing the absolutely amazing community in Guild Wars 2, I was finally able to remove those rose-tinted glasses that I had on and see some of the things that I had refused to see before. There are great people in 14, plenty of them, but the Guild Wars 2 community literally trips over each other to help new players. I mean, I've heard stories of one veteran poaching a new player from another veteran so they can help them instead. Another reason that I left was that repeated burnout that I talked about. Again, this wasn't Final Fantasy XIV's fault, but let's address the burnout anyway. There are quite a few reasons that I suffered these repeated bouts of burnout. One of the biggest reasons is the fact that Final Fantasy XIV gives you zero control over character progression. There are no builds. Everyone uses one of the very few choices for best in slot gears and weapons. Every time new gear tiers come out, it's always just go get the new gears and now we're all the same again. Leveling other jobs helps with that feeling of being the same as everyone else, but then you realize that you're just like everyone else again. There's no variation. An endgame white mage is an endgame white mage. We all use the same skills in the same optimized order while wearing the same gears. Now, I realize that this practice is not abnormal, at least in some way, in other MMOs, but this issue is compounded by the way that the Holy Trinity works. The Holy Trinity of tank, healer, DPS is present in Final Fantasy XIV, but ultimately, no matter which role you choose, you're a DPS. Tanks and healers are both DPS first, and their respective roles second. Endgame content has brutal enrage timers that require all party members to be doing optimal damage. Now for me, if I'm playing as a healer within the Trinity, I want to be able to focus on healing and help DPS when my squad is safe. I don't want to just be standing around not doing anything, but healing should be my focus. So I actually stopped playing healer when the focus felt like it shifted in such a way that healer was no longer fun for me. It was stressful. And I'm not a fan of the stress of letting your tank get so close to death that you attacking just one more time would see them drop and potentially cause a squad wipe. I had several tanks tell me that I heal too much and that I would need to learn to stop doing that if I ever wanted to do savage raids. Now, I come from games where the healer's number one job is to heal. I remember playing one MMO where the healer threw up what was affectionately called a blue ball or a blue bubble and could walk away from their computer for a minute or two if they trusted their tank. DPS was not their job. Any damage that they did was extra. DPS is so important that at endgame, in 14, many people feel pressured to install a DPS meter, an external mod which is a violation of terms of service. It's not an enforced rule, but it is a bannable offense. This pressure was not really an issue for me, as I played on console, where it simply isn't possible. But the fact that this pressure even exists is a problem that will never be fixed as long as DPS is the number one thing that matters. Another reason that I left is, and hear me out here, again, I know, hear me out. Final Fantasy XIV is not a good MMO. It's a great game. It's a good Final Fantasy game with a really good story. MMOs, though, are massively multiplayer. It's right there in the name. But 14's story can quite literally be played as a single-player game, only grouping up for required dungeons and instanced content, which can be done via the Party Finder, making it possible to never speak to another living person to even get the help required for the dungeons. The story, in my opinion, is really, really good, and it gets better as you move into the expansion content. Unfortunately, that same story feels like a very pretty, interactive book. It pushes you from point A to point B to point C with little input or choice on your part. This, again, is not uncommon in MMOs, but the fact that the first 50 or so hours of the story is a bit of a slog, and the fact that everything is story-gated behind the main scenario quest makes the game very alt-unfriendly, which leads me right into my next reason. I love to have different characters in MMOs, but Final Fantasy XIV actively makes leveling alts painful. Almost nothing is account bound, save a few cash shop mounts and extra retainers that you pay extra sub cost for. Retainers are basically extra bank space. Some cash shop mounts aren't even account bound. They are single character. Cash shop fashion that you paid real money for, $22 for some of them, are single character. If you want it on 2 characters, you have to spend the money twice. $7 for an emote for 1 character. $5 for a non-combat pet for 1 character. Store-bought dies that cannot be traded even to characters on the same account. And mind you, there is no way to earn cash shop currency in the game, so it's all real money spent. It feels like Final Fantasy XIV does not respect the fact that I had to earn that money that I continually pay them each month, and then they want to charge me premium prices for single character items in the cash shop. Now obviously these things are optional, but the point stands. All fashion, mounts, minions, triple triad cards, and tons more stuff purchased with in-game currency with Gil must be purchased on all characters. All of them have to have whatever it is. Many of those things are tradable, but you have to, say, for example, have the fashion to use it, and once it's been used, it becomes soulbound and therefore untradeable. Very alt-unfriendly. I won't say that the sub cost had no weight in my decision, but I was okay paying the subscription fees. For 6 months of game time, I was paying $120 due to extra retainers and the companion premium app, plus the fact that I had to buy the game and its expansions. I don't even want to know how much I spent in total. It's a scary number, I'm sure. The cost, though, was a small factor, but I would be completely willing to have continued paying it because I enjoyed the game. If I had stayed, it wouldn't be an issue. So, in conclusion, honestly, Final Fantasy XIV is a great game. Guild Wars 2 is just a better game, in my opinion. Don't get me wrong, Guild Wars 2 has its faults, and could learn several things from 14. But the reasons I've talked about in this video are the biggest reasons that I've made the decision to finally leave Final Fantasy XIV. Will I ever return? I don't think so. I do have plans to go back for a short video series that I want to do comparing different things in Final Fantasy XIV and Guild Wars 2, and possibly a stream showcasing the differences, but beyond that, I don't believe that I'll return to 14. I won't say never because I don't know what the future holds. But for right now, and for the foreseeable future, Guild Wars 2 is my home. My new family is there and very supportive. And speaking of, I do want to take a moment to thank all of my subscribers here on YouTube and all of my followers and subscribers on Twitch. I truly appreciate all of you so much, and without you guys and your support, I wouldn't be where I am now. If you guys enjoyed the video, please make sure you hit the like button, because it really does help out the channel a lot. It lets YouTube know that I'm not just talking to myself, or however long this video ends up being. And if you want to see more content like this, make sure you hit that subscribe button, so that you always know when we post a new video. And if you want to see more Guild Wars 2 content, make sure you hit that subscribe button. As always, thank you so much for watching this video. We very much appreciate it. I hope you guys have a great day, and I hope to see you in the next video.